So this week we're going to look at a book I got in an antique store in Branson. It's called Kansas City Star: Classic Quilt Patterns, Motifs and Designs. This is volume one. I found volume one and volume two. This goes from 1928 to 1930, and this goes from 1931 to 1932. Now, these were patterns that were printed in the Kansas City Star newspaper from 1928 to sometime in the 1960s. All kind of different patterns in here. And this is what was actually printed in the newspaper along with a little article. Everything in here pretty much is template based. So some of them are a little difficult to design in our modern way of sewing, but I'm working on it. I think that it will be interesting to do some of these patterns. And I know some similar patterns are already designed on different programs, and a lot of people have done things like this over the years. Some of these are a little difficult for my brain to convert. Um, um, this week, I want to do this pattern here. It's called Cross and Crowns. Okay, I'll just move my hand so you can see it there. This one says it makes a 14-inch finished, and that's not what I did. So I tried and tried to convert this. And the harder I tried to convert it, the more complicated it became in my mind. I don't know why. So what I did was a little different. I decided to make it into a paper piece or foundation piece pattern. Now this one's a 9-inch and this is a 9-inch here. This is the block. I'll show you. I made a little table runner. These are 9-inch blocks, 2-inch sashing strips all around. So the reason I chose the 9 over the 10, this is a 10-inch and this is the first one I did. And I do like the size of this one a little better, but this is why I went with the 9. Upon playing with it, I discovered that if I go with a 9-inch block, I can use jelly rolls. Now, a lot of us have a lot of jelly rolls. So it would be a great thing to use up some of the jelly roll scraps that you have. A lot of times when we use a jelly roll quilt, we have quite a few pieces left on the end that we don't need. This is a great pattern for that. Also, you can just cut 2.5-inch strips, and a lot of times we have leftover binding that's also usually cut at 2.5 inches. So in order to make each block, we're going to talk about each block. Well, we'll do this middle one. I'll put this on each side like that so it's not so distracting. There we go. Okay, to make each block, you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 2.5-inch squares. Now, I don't know if you want to do all, you may want every color to be different. This is just the pattern and the colors I chose. I did make different reds. They're not all the same. They were made out of scraps or very small pieces of stash fabric. I didn't get into big pieces of fabric with this. So you're going to need 17 of those per block. I'm going to do this per block because you may want to make just one block. You might want to make 20 blocks. You might want to make 3 blocks, 4 blocks, whatever. So per block, okay? Next, you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 2.5 by 5-inch pieces for the cross. You will need 1, 2, 3, 4, 2.5 by 6.5-inch pieces for the bars in the crown. And you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2.5 by 2.5-inch pieces for the spikes on the crown. That's what you're going to need. That's per block. So if you happen to have some jelly rolls in some interesting colors, or if you just want to make it all mixed up, you can do that. And that's it. That's all you got to do. Because this is foundation paper piece, I know you're saying, how am I going to do this with you? Because, I mean, Belinda, I don't have it. 2 options. Option 1, send me an email to beyourselfquilting@gmail.com. subject line, crossing crowns pattern. I will email you back the PDF form of this file. Okay, I will send it back to you. I'm not interested in your email, but that's the free way I can get it to you. Best I can do. If you don't want me to have your email address, I get it. Some people don't. You can go to my Etsy store at Be Yourself Quilting on Etsy, and you can download just the pattern. This is all you're going to get. Okay, this is not an instruction pattern. You're going to get page 1 and page 2. Oh, I did that wrong. Page 1 and page 2. This is wrong size. This is all you're going to get. You're not going to get do this, cut this, do this, cut this, measure this, whatever. I'm going to charge you $1.50. I have to charge you something because Etsy charges me just to put the ad on. Okay, so the cost will be $1.50. And then you can download this for yourself and make your own blocks. Now, that's the best I can do. If I think the free option's probably the easiest and best. If you do the free option, please check your junk mail, but give me at least 24 hours. Disclaimer, there are no instructions in the Etsy download. Just this. That's it. All right. Now, that's all you need. Well, I made mine like this because, like I said, I was making it as a table runner for a little table I had, and then I got to thinking about it, and I have this little wall between my bathroom and my closet, and it's very narrow, and I think this would match pretty well in there. I have a lot of rust and whites and browns and stuff in that room, so I'm thinking this might go well in there, but if not, I'll go back to the table that I made it for to begin with. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stop here. We're going to go over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to show you how to paper piece. Here's the pattern. It's 2 pages. It's 2 of these blocks, 1 of these, and 2 of these. That's what the block consists of. And this will be what you will get yielded to you. Okay, right here. So let's talk about what we need. So if we decide to join along, and we're going to do more of these blocks, this won't be the only one. So you might just want to make one instead of making a bunch of them, because we will probably put it together as a sampler at some point. So once you get your paper pieces printed off, I just make little stacks of mine. Let me move that out the way. And I have those 2 stacked together, these 2 stacked together, this one by, let's see, I don't know if you can see all that. I'm supposed to talk, and you might even better see what I'm talking about. So I have these 2 without the extra piece stacked together. I have these 2 with the little extra piece stacked together, and I'm gonna put the fabrics that I need for each section with it, and then you just have 1 of these, and I put the fabric with that, and that'll be probably the last piece because it's the simplest piece. Now, I'm not going to show you every one of these. We will do one of these together because it has all the pieces on it. We'll work one together, and I'll probably work one sped up, and that will give you a feel for what you need to do. I'm just going to set the one on the side, and we'll do one at a time. Now, in order to actually do foundation paper piecing, you will need a rotary cutter that you don't mind cutting paper, so if you might need to change your blade whenever you're through. You will need a ruler that is at least going to be 9.5 inches long, because you'll need this to square up your block when you're done putting it together. You will need it also to have a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance mark, or you can, if you happen to have one of these at a quarter rulers, that's perfect to use for most of this project. If you see, I've used mine a lot. How many times have I hit it with my rotary cutter and dinged it? And you will need, it would be best to have, I'm going to say you got to have, but this would be best to have something like a piece of cardboard thin, A piece of cardstock works well. A card, maybe you got a greeting card or something that's just laying on the side that you don't need. Maybe you got a birthday card you're not interested in keeping. You can cut that, or an index card, just something a little thicker than a piece of paper, okay? A little more sturdy. And that's really the essentials to starting this project. Now, I use an iron with mine, and a lot of people don't. Also, um, if you don't want to use an iron, a glue stick would come in quite handy. I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so let's get started. When you look at your piece of film, oh, and I'm using a light box. You don't need a light box. I'm using this because I can't keep lifting the camera to show you what it looks like when you hold it up to the light. But instead of using a light box, all you're going to do is lift yours up and hold it up to the light, and you'll be able to see it as if it was a light box underneath it, okay? So I'm just going to use my Caterpillar for this part, and it also has my cutting mat underneath it, so I don't have to keep switching all that out. This is going to be the side that you sew from. This is your reverse side, your back side, your wrong side. It is going, this is this side, okay? This, that you can't see anything on, really, too much, especially, this is your right side. So, although this one doesn't have the numbers on it, if you choose to purchase it or ask for it for free, yours will have a number order. And let's talk about that real quick. It doesn't matter whether you do A, B, C, or D first. It doesn't matter. Or E. What matters is when you do one section, that you start with the 1, B1, and then B2, and then B3, B4, and B5, B6, and B7. You have to do it in the order in which it's numbered, okay? That's the main thing with it. And then, of course, this one has an 8 on it, which is here. I've done enough of these where I knew to do this one first. I don't know why it didn't print the letters to begin with, but it didn't. So I'm just going to start here. And I'm going to use just this plain red one for the corner. Now, make sure you can see this. So as you see, if you hold it up to a light, you can see a shadow under here. I'm looking to see that there's about a 1/4 inch above this line, out to this line, from this line, and from this line. When I see that it's like that, I'm good to go. Now, if you don't have a glue stick, stick a pin in it. I got a glue stick, so I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right there, press it down to hold that piece in place. That's piece number 1. She's done. Piece number 2 is going to be, I don't know which one it is, but I'm going to just choose one of them. Let's see if it's this one. Okay, so piece number 2 will be here according to that pattern. So since this is number 2, I need a brown piece. This is a background. This is a point piece. So whatever you've chosen for your points, that's what you need to use. So I'm going to use this one. Okay. And what I'm going to do is slide this underneath here, right sides together. Right sides together. And I'm going to line this piece up along with that piece like that. And that is how I'm going to begin sewing. This is the line. Let me just go ahead and number these so you'll know. So let's just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. And then this is background, background, background. This is the cross. And this is the crown. CR, CR, and CR. And that way you'll kind of know what we're doing here. Yours will be better, but this is how we're going to start. So we're going to sew the line between the first and second piece, which is this line here. Now to sew this line, we're going to begin about a 1/4 inch before this line, and we're going to end a 1/4 inch after this line. It can be more than a 1/4 inch. Just don't make it less than a 1/4 inch. Come to my sewing machine. I'm just going to shrink my stitch length to 1.8. That way it makes my stitches good and tight, and when I go to remove the paper to sew it together, it will have perforated this paper to the point where it just will easily peel off, okay? So I'm just going to be careful to lift this. As you can see, my right sides are together, and I'm going to sew this line. So I'm going to slide it up under here. Now you can use any foot you want. An open toe foot is usually a good choice for this one. I like this foot. I have no idea what this foot is. It just came with my sewing machine a long time ago, and I never used it until this year. But it's got this little ridge that runs along here, and I just line that ridge up on the line when I'm actually sewing on the line. So I use this for paper piecing, and I also use it when I'm making half square triangles and such. Okay, now that line is now sewn, correct? So only on this first section here, when you're working with piece one, you might want to do this. What I do is I fold this line back, and that's where this paper comes in, because this one is perforated, but the next one won't be. And I will put my ruler. Now this one time here, I'm going to use this one, so you'll see. And I'm going to lay that seam line up against the paper, and I'm going to trim the fabric out of here. It's in excess of a 1/4 inch. This way it keeps my seams really nice and straight once I get going. Now that was piece 1 and 2. Okay, so once we've got it like this, once we get it trimmed, we need to open up this piece here. And we need to press it. Now you can finger press it if you're happy with that. You can glue stick press it. You can put a little piece of glue stick there and put it on there. I'm going to use my iron. It's what I prefer, so that's what I'm going to do. So now it's good and flat. I'm going to flip it over. So my next piece to add on is this piece here, piece 3. So this is the line between 2 and 3. So this is my line I need to sew. I want to make sure I'm at least a 1/4 inch out after, and a 1/4 inch on this side. So at least a 1/4 inch on both sides. I'll show you this real quick. So this solid line here is the finished block side, but this dotted line here is the seam allowance line. And this is the line that I'm sewing to right now, because we have to include the seam allowance to put the block together. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn my paper where I can see it, and I'm going to line this piece of cardboard up with that line. And I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to bend this back along that piece, okay? When you do that, now you can drop your 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is, see, that's when this outer corner comes in nice because it locks in. It's got that little ridge. And I'm just going to trim that off. Now, if you do crumb quilts or something, great. Here you go. But I don't do that, so I'm not worried about saving it. Now I have my 1/4 inch seam allowance line, right? So I'm going to look for a piece of background. I'll use this one. And I'm going to put them right sides together. And if you see from this side, I only need to be at least a 1/4 inch to this side and out here. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm at least past this a 1/4 inch, like that. And now I'm going to sew this line. I know it sounds confusing. It's really not. Once you get to going a little bit, it's just very simple to do. One thing I kind of like about this foot too is it seems to be about a 1/4 inch from the end of that to the beginning. So when I do it, it gives me good 1/4 inch there if I line the needle up and this with the edge of the line. I don't know why, it just does. So now I'm through with this one, and I'm going to press it. And I know that that 2.5 inch block looks kind of big, and it is kind of big for this piece, but I thought consistency in cutting your fabric would be nice. Okay, so there we go. I'm not going to worry about all this hanging out right now. So now I want to be piece number 4. We're going to go back over here, and since this is connected to the first piece, I'm going to put my piece there, and I'll just use this ruler to show you. You can use either one, and I'm just going to check and see how much I need to trim this. Now it's more of an accurate 1/4 inch. Get rid of these little scraps here. Oops. Okay. So we need the other crown piece. And that will just go here, just like this. I'll flip it over. I'll make sure that it's at least that much here, at least that much here. We're good to go. So now we're going to sew that line. And it just becomes repetition at this point. You do want to sew accurately on the line if you can help it, because if you do, that'll give you your good points. I'm sorry. Now we will open this up and we will press that back. The next piece is piece 5, so we're going to get our piece of cardboard and we are going to put it right here, just like that. It doesn't matter that you tear that, because eventually that's going to be gone anyway. Now they do make these outer quarters in shorter lengths. I just chose the bigger lengths because I like to be able to make any size block I would want to without having to slide it down. Okay, so our next spot is going to be a background. So I'm just going to grab this one. This is fine. I'm just kind of mixing them up a little bit, but it doesn't make any difference. I just want to make sure that it goes past this line and past that line, and it does. So I'm good. Put it like this. Now, if by chance you accidentally make a mistake, and say you don't sew on the right line, or you cut wrong, or you just do something that you're not happy with, you can pick it out. If you need to do that, just pick it out, take out your seam. And then if by chance your perforation is so perforated that you feel like it's coming apart, just put your little piece of tape across that, okay? And it'll hold it right together and you can continue on. Let me give this a quick press. And so now we have this piece that looks kind of strange like that, okay? We're going to now flip this over. Now our next piece, since we've done piece 5, is piece 6. Piece 6. Okay. I'm just going to give it a little pull so that I can get my paper edge on there. I'm going to put this here all the way across. Just like that. And yes, we're going to just trim all that off. And that's going to give us our 1/4 inch seam all the way across here. This is all garbage unless you do something with those little tiny pieces. Okay, and there we go. So the next piece we need is this here, which is part of the crown. So I'm going to just choose this piece right here. I think it's just fine like that. Is that right? Is that the right piece? Yes. You want to make sure that this piece is long enough. It needs to go from way over here to way over here. I'm going to flip it over. Make sure it's lined up. If you feel like you're having trouble lining it up, use a pen. It's all right. You can use a pen. There's no rule that says you can't pin when it comes to paper piecing. Okay, I'm going to start out here. Put that down. Make sure everything's kind of lined up under there. If your seam allowance is a less than 1/4 of an inch, don't get freaked out over it. It's okay. You know, sometimes our seam allowance aren't always just a 1/4 inch whenever we make a block. So we're going to flip it over and we're going to press it. Okay. Now, see, this one's kind of got like a little puff to it. This piece of fabric's a little thicker, and I feel like it's got a little puff to it. And I like my blocks good and flat. So I'm going to put me just a little spot of glue on that. And I'm going to just press it down in place so it's good and flat for me, because I don't like that puffed up look when it comes to my foundation piecing. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to piece 7, which we're going to take right here and put this right here. Years ago, I didn't know about using that little piece of cardboard, and I tell you what, when I discovered that, oh, what a game changer when it comes to paper piecing. Now, we need piece number 7. This is the only piece that is a bit weird. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. When it comes to this piece here, if you have a piece that's a little bit bigger, maybe a 3x3, it would probably be better. But I don't have one. So this is how I work this out. I took this piece and I lined it up like this. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the camera. Then I took it and pulled it back toward my fabric piece here, about a 1/4 inch on both sides. I know that sounds kind of weird, but when we open it up, so our 1/4 inch seam, it's going to be right. So this is how this one needs to look. From the right side of the fabric, you take the wrong side and you put it about a 1/4, you take it, line up the points about a 1/4 inch below the line you're going to sew. And then you're going to be careful when you flip it over, and you're going to put it up under here, and you're going to sew along that line. Now, it's good to know this because you might not always have just the right size piece of fabric. And if you don't, if you're working pure scraps, there's sometimes you can use stuff. Okay. I hit the right button. Now, when I open this up, it will cover that space. So we're going to go ahead, flip it back over, and this time we're going to trim it a second time and get rid of this, okay? I'm going to slide this back under here. It's just for this one corner if you're using 2.5 by 2.5 inch blocks. Trim this out, throw that away. Now I'm going to go ahead and press this so you can see. And when we flip it over, you can see it's far enough here and it's far enough here in order to cover this whole section. If you put it directly on the line, you're probably going to be short here. And I don't know if it's enough to catch this, okay? So that's why I did it this way. Our next line is going to be the last piece on this little block. We're going to just chunk that away. And we need one of the crossbars for this one, which this should be our crossbar. It's going to match Your crossbar fabric should match this bar fabric unless you're doing all scraps. So this is it here, and you can see this piece is huge. It's just I cut a 2.5-inch strip, so I didn't bother with cutting it down. But, sorry, let me put it like this. I'm going to put it from one side to the other, and I actually am going to go ahead, grab myself a pair of scissors, and kind of cut it along here, because that gives me a pretty good piece to throw back in my scrap pile, right? And I'll save that for another project. Now that this is lined up, I'm just going to sew along this line here, all the way across. I'm going to open that up. It will easily cover that. Now I need to trim this. Let me get all this out of the way. Now this, I'm going to use this ruler, okay? Because this one has a ridge on it. So, I mean, I could use it, but it is a little wonky to use this ruler. So I'm going to use this one because it's going to lay flat. And all I'm going to do is line up that 1/4-inch marking on that line. And I'm going to trim the edge. Now remember, you're not cutting on this line. If you do that, you will have no seam allowance. You want a 1/4-inch from this solid line, which is the dotted line. Okay, guys, and that is one corner. All right, so here we go. This is one corner. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to finish this one, and then I'll do those two, and then I'll come back and we'll piece that centerpiece together. Okay, so first of all, let's just show you how easy this is to tear this off. So you're just going to pull it along the edge, and you might have these little corners you might have to pull out. All you got to do is just kind of pull your fabric and see it just pops right off. Just like perforated paper. And you're just going to work yourself around it. I said, if your little piece of paper stays in it, it's not going to hurt anything. If you wash it, it'll eventually just disintegrate. And if not, it doesn't really matter. So many quilts were made with paper in them as foundations anyway and was never removed. So and that's about it, guys. So there you go. I want to show you that. The next thing, let me get rid of that trash. Just want to show you how to do this last piece, which is the easiest piece there is, but it is a little different maybe. Okay. Let me get a little piece of glue stick just to hold it in place. There we go. And we'll just put right sides together like that. Okay, so you're just going to open this up. Let me give a quick press. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little dab of glue on this end because after all, it is a little bit long and there's nothing else going to sew to it just to hold it in its place. We'll flip this over. Sorry. Let's just put this on here, right sides together. Flip this one over. Sew it real quick. Now, Add a little press. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue stick on there, mostly to hold it for trimming purposes, so nothing slips when I trim it. Then just like the others, we'll come along here and we'll trim it. Put the 1/4 inch line on the solid line, the end of the ruler out towards the dotted line. This is a pretty good piece of scrap, so I'll save that. Cut this other end off. Okay, and then we just have the length here to trim. Make sure that it goes all the way through before you move your ruler. If you happen to trim on the wrong line, you will have to remake the piece. Okay, let me get that out the way. And then all we got, oh, I totally am off on that. Somehow I got, quite sure how I did that, but okay, that's better. Now we're just going to peel this piece off here. Peel this side off. And just pull that, and it should pop right out of there. There we go. And that's our centerpiece. So here's corners with that, and it's going to go together just like this. So the first step is going to be to sew this to this, and then this bottom to this block. We will press to the inside when we add these pieces. Then we will sew each side here. It's going to be very simple. Make sure you get it all good and lined up. Oh, I got to change my foot to a 1/4 inch foot, or whatever foot you use to help you get an accurate 1/4 inch on your sewing machine. Okay, and it doesn't matter what's the top and bottom, just so you got it there. Now we can sew this side on. Just going to line up my top corner real well. Would put me a little lead in on that. I should have had it a while ago. Okay, now I'm going to check this center here to make sure that my seams are nested. If you would like to pin there, you're welcome to pin before you ever get started. As soon as my needle passes that seam, I'm going to stop and do whatever adjustments I need to do right here. So these two nest. Then I'm going to come back, make that end match. Happy with that. Hold on, guys. There we go. Then we're going to just open this up and just make sure when you do it that your points are out to the outside. Don't accidentally sew it where they're all to the inside. I mean, if you did that, you just have little V pointy things. Put it like this. It makes a cross. And then we can put this together. So it's not really that long to do one of these blocks. Just depends on how big you want to make it. Like I said, if you just want to make one block and just kind of use it as part of a sampler quilt, that's great. If you want to make a table runner or wall hanging or a whole quilt, really doesn't much matter. Let's see how that looks, guys. See how nice those corners match up like that? Okay, I'm gonna get that press smooth. I wanted to thank you all for joining me again this week. I hope you enjoyed this project, and we will do some more of the blocks out of that particular book series. I wanted to tell you that I appreciate everybody subscribing, liking, commenting. You're really helping my channel to grow, and I so appreciate you. Until next week, guys, remember to always be yourself and be safe. Bye.